Oh, blow the man down, bullies, blow the man down. Blow the man down. I'm working on the Mirage 5.5 that I recently acquired. And as you can see right here, the plywood motor mount pad for the outboard is rotted right on through here. And it has to be renewed. It looks like they use stainless steel hardware. Yeah, that's all stainless. What I need to do is I want to take it off, and I'm going to try to do as little damage as possible because I want to use this as a template and try to make it like original. And I'll even reuse this hardware if I can. Have everything line up just right. So that's what I'm going to attempt. And I'm going to see if I can get away with this. It is turning. Let me grab a hold of it. That's what I was afraid of. I didn't think it was strong enough to hold. It wasn't. But at least it's not on terribly tight. Well, if they all come off that easy, I'm in good shape, but I've got a feeling that's probably not going to happen. Let's see how this one does. Yeah, that's turning as well. But I do have it broken free of the lock washer. And I don't know about the bottom ones though. Yeah, this is where I might have to, I can't really get to them unless I chip away that wood, but that's spinning too. Well, let me get a chisel, get some sharp tools. I'm back. I have a small wood chisel, and I'm going to see if I can get in there, knock some of that stuff out so I can get the pliers under there to hold on to that bolt or stud. And this stuff is so soft, it's coming right out. So I think I'm able to hold on to the original outer shape there, which is what I want. And I already know the thickness. Yeah, I think I can do that. Yeah, that was not unscrewing quite as easily, but it's still coming off without too much trouble. Not really a problem. And this hardware will clean up so that I can reuse it. So when I'm finished, this pad will look just like original. Maybe even better. I have it off. I got a spring back there. Oh, I see, that's for the mechanism. I don't want that to get lost. And there's the hardware. It's not a regular bolt. So I'm good. It's a good thing I can reuse these. I could save them. This thing's coming right apart in my hand. I think these bolts are the only thing holding it together because the wood is so soft and rotted on the inside. There we go. And I do believe I have enough for a template. That'll be close enough. And then I'll just wire brush this up. This is only aluminum, so I'm going to wire brush this. I'll apply some of that self-etching primer that I had for my mast and boom on my that I'm refurbishing for the new sailboat, and we'll put a little paint on it to help keep it from corroding again. We get a little marine grease here and some of these pivot points, and it should be good as new. I don't think I have to take any of this off. I can do everything in place. Okay, so here's the old one. And here's the new one. A little bit better. So now I'm going to start putting epoxy here. I'm going to slurp some in, get epoxy into the bolt holes, because I want it to soak into the plywood inside those holes, so that moisture, if it does creep in there, it's not going to start rotting this plywood from the inside out. But I'm going to coat the entire thing. And once the epoxy has cured, I'll come back, give it a little bit of a sanding, and then I'm going to put a few coats of spa varnish on it, because I think I'm going to finish this bright. What I'm going to do now, I just made a little bracket so I can hang this up. And you'll see what I'm doing here. Just a second. Just making sure that epoxy can get a good coat in that hole. Actually, the 4 holes that the bolts go through. And I'm going to, once I get this initial coat of epoxy on here, let it start soaking in, and I get full coverage, I'm going to hang it up, and then I'm going to go back over it with the brush so I don't have a lot of runs and drips. And if I can control those, I'll have a lot less sanding to do in the long run. And I'll probably give a second coat of epoxy on these end grains. I think with all these coatings, it's going to provide this pad with some pretty good protection, probably better than the original. These are the special fasteners that are used for the outboard motor pad on my Mirage 5.5 that I recently acquired. And as you can see, I mean, these are stainless steel, but they've got all kinds of corrosion on them, and some kind of sealing junk and everything else. And since I made a new pad, I'm going to test out that bead blaster by cleaning these up before I reassemble things. I'm now going to put these fasteners in the bead blast cabinet. I'm going to fire up my compressor, and when I get enough air pressure, I'm going to give it a try and see how it comes out. Now, I'd like to videotape the entire process. However, there's really no way to get a camera in there and not hurt the lens, be able to film it. There's no light inside this cabinet. A lot of bead blast cabinets, my old one used to have a light inside, so you really can't get any video of it with all the dust flying around. So I'll just show you what they look like when they come out. Not a bad job at all. That'll work. I don't have any marine grease on hand. That's what I had planned on using. And to use it, I'd have to disassemble all this mechanism. And I decided I really didn't want to do that. And it's really not that necessary. It's not designed to be lubricated. This is pretty loose the way it's put together. And it's all aluminum. And it's not corroded at all. So I think it works just fine as is, but just to give it a little help, I have this white lithium grease and a spray can. And so it goes on very thin, very liquid, and once it's in place, then it starts to solidify, not really solid, but it thickens up a bit. So you can get it, you can spray it into a joint and it'll penetrate before it starts to get thicker. And I figured it can't hurt. Just a little bit of lubrication here and there, even though it doesn't really call for it. So in all these little different joints, I'm just going to squirt a little, not a lot. It almost looks like a water almost when you spray it on. But just a little bit. Get into a couple of tough places. And that should do the trick. So far you saw me take off the old pad that was all rotted, and I tried to duplicate it as best I could and made a new pad. I cleaned up the metal, went down to bare metal here where it mounts, a little bit of pitting and corrosion, got rid of all that, and I put the self-etching primer and then an additional coat of another metal primer on top of that, and I lubricated these joints. It's all cleaned up, ready to go. I've got the new pad here, and the original fasteners that I took off, I put those in the media blast cabinet, and I cleaned them up with glass beads right down to bare metal, and they're nice and clean now. No more dirt, corrosion, you know, any of that stuff. So now I can start reassembling. The first thing I'm doing before I try to install this is I want to assure that I have the mounting holes lined up properly, that this is going to fit the way it should. I don't have to completely mount it, I just want to do a test. Sure enough, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to take these out right now. And now I'm going to take some goop. And there's nothing fancy here. I'm not using 5200 or any of the other fancy marine sealants and adhesives. All I'm doing is I'm using, this is just a plain latex based silicone caulk, real cheap stuff from Home Depot. This is old, I've had it open for a while. And what I'm doing is I'm just using it as a bedding compound. So this way here, it puts a little bit of, this is between the wood and the metal. I get to bed it. I'm just going to spread it out. And this will keep any water or moisture from getting between the wood and the metal. And even though I have coated the wood with epoxy and varnish and all that, I don't, that stuff can break down over time. There's vibration that goes on with the motor, and you would get moisture back there and you start rot and more pitting and corrosion in the metal. So I'm trying to avoid that. It may happen eventually, but this gives me a little bit of time. Then I'm going to add some here to the all the fasteners. And again, it's just used as a bedding compound. Spreading it around. Again, there's even though there's epoxy in there, I'm going to give it a little more coating, a little more protection. It's probably not necessary. This thing will probably go for years before it needs another pad, but you know, if I have the material and I have the time, why not take that extra step? I'm using all the original fasteners, putting this back together because they were all in pretty good shape. And you may remember there was a spring back here. That's why that hole is there for. So I'm going to put that in the hole. Get those bolts lined up. So. And the original, once again, all original fasteners. We get those nuts started, lock washers and nuts. It's all stainless steel. Once I get them all started, then I can start tightening, but it's that spring that's kind of holding them out. Alrighty. So I'll tighten them up as much as I can by hand. I should have run a tap on the inside of the nuts, which I didn't do, because there was some bedding compound on the inside of those threads, and I kind of forgot about it. That's why it's giving me a little trouble putting it on by hand, but once you get past a certain point, you're fine. I now have it to the point where I can go ahead and start tightening these, and it was exactly the problem I thought. I just needed to run a tap on those nuts. I didn't bother. I was able to cinch them down without it. It just made it a little more difficult. But I have so many projects going on, and I'm going in so many different directions. Sometimes I forget little steps like that. It happens. And I think that's socked down pretty well. I don't think I need to sock it down any more than that. We're good. Now I just have to clean it up a little.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor?